Well, good morning everyone, and welcome to the video that we filmed from Hillview Hardy Plants. I've filmed this a day or so afterwards, this introduction, because I felt I needed to reflect on my day a little bit at Hillview and some of the knowledge that I gained from John, Ingrid and Sarah. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank them for their hospitality, making me so welcome. I had a cup of tea when I was waiting. We had a great laugh and really enjoyed the day. I'm sure that they probably might not say the same about me, but it was just great to spend some time there with them. So I'm out here this morning with a nice cup of tea, just enjoying my Auricula. It's really good. It's probably one of my morning routines now. A nice brew. Enjoying my lovely plants here. I think I've probably doubled my Auricula collection since my visit to Hillview, so there we go. But no, thank you to the three of you, and also I just want to explain a little bit about the video. Sarah and Ingrid, in certain areas of the nursery, went through some of the stuff that they like to do with their plants. There's a lot of knowledge there and expertise they've shared. John goes on later in the video to talk about pests. He talks about it at length, about aphids and vine weevil and some of the other pests that you might get. He does talk for quite a long time about that. And it's really important, I think, because it's something that we could all experience in our time growing Auricula. So really, it only affects you if it affects you. And I think that it's really important to gain some knowledge on those things. And then we do a bit of a Q&A at the end where some of you ask some questions. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys for looking after me for the day and making me so welcome. And I hope everybody enjoys the video and really just get something out of it. There's a lot of knowledge and expertise there from them, so I'm hoping to do another one. There's a few people I'd like to go and see. Norman's one of them. I'm not sure whether he'll be keen to do one with me, but it'd be lovely to get some knowledge from him as well. But that's all down the line. Enjoy the video and I will see you all soon. Well, a very good morning to you all. It's lovely to be here at Hillview Hardy Plants. I've just had a nice cup of tea with Ingrid, John and Sarah, and we're looking forward to a good day here. So hopefully you'll all get something out of what we do here today. It's great to just come and have a look around, and hopefully you'll pick up some tips and tricks from some of the experts here. I've had a wander around, and what an amazing place. There's some beautiful plants here, as you would expect. So yeah, come and join me on the day here, and hopefully, like I say, you'll get something out of it. So I will see you all in a bit. All right.
Do you want to stand on that side so then do you want to stand on this side, or do you want to be like,
I don't mind really.
close to the most?
No, I'll come on then.
Otherwise you'll keep having to turn your head, you see.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Right. So and we're just going to talk a little bit about what sort of pests may cause you problems when growing your Auricula. So, what do you find, John's the most common sort of, other than me?
Yep, definitely Graham. Graham's the biggest pest I've had to put up with today.
Right, hi everyone. So we're back in the.
Yeah.
That's all right. So we're back in the.
Hey, that was a good trick.
We're back. We're back in the. No, this is good. This is good. We're back in we're back in the stock tunnel again. Stock tunnel, isn't it?
It is.
Stock tunnel. Everyone, we've come into the stock tunnel now, haven't we? This is what you call the stock.
Yep.
So what was the other tunnel called?
Sales tunnel.
The sales tunnel, the stock tunnel. When we were walking around earlier on, one thing I noticed that a lot of these plants, we use this as an example. This is in a bigger pot, as opposed to. So I tend to grow things at home in 9cm pots, etc., etc. So can you just explain why this is in a bigger pot, and why people at home maybe could they grow theirs in bigger pots or whatever? Could you explain that?
You want to say or shall I? We can both say. Okay, go on then. Go on then. Part of the reason is because obviously these are our stock plants.
Yeah.
So we want to make as many offshoots as possible and give them the space to do that.
Okay.
So obviously they've got more space in the pot so they can fill it.
Yeah.
But also it's what you want to achieve from your plant. Do you want it to be a show plant, in which case you might keep it a bit smaller, or do you want to have it because you enjoy it?
Yeah.
And one with that many flower heads and trusses is much more exciting than just a single one as well.
So it really depends on what people want to get out of their Auricula, really. So how long would that have been in that pot for example?
Since last October.
Okay.
So it would have started off that size last year.
So you'd have split it last year.
Yeah, and so we planted that size in the autumn,
Yeah.
and then it's then grown to that
Ah,
size.
Okay. And is that to do with the size of the pot that it's grown like that, or just?
A certain amount is to do with the size of the pot. Certain varieties are much more vigorous than others, but by giving them the space and not taking offsets constantly throughout the year, just doing it once a year, obviously you're giving it a chance to make more babies.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, really, you could either have one like that or 3 or 4 little ones, and it's actually easy just to look after one.
Yeah.
And then if a bit dies off, you're not particularly losing anything. Whereas if you keep splitting it,
Yeah.
and splitting it, at some point bits are going to die.
Okay. So say with this plant here then, back in October, if you just left it in that pot, that size, would you still get that kind of massive plant?
No.
No.
Okay. So just so everyone can see, this is this is what you 7-9
Yeah,
centimetre pot,
that's 9 centimetres.
and this is
A
a
litre.
lot bigger. So this is a litre pot. So just so everyone can see that, I think it's really important. It depends on what you want to do with your auricula, really. So some great advice there. Thank you both very much. Just basically, we're going to do some basic stuff. So there's a lot of people that are new to growing auricula. And really want to know the different types, maybe what sort of type of compost to use and things like that. So we're going to go through some of those things with you, with Ingrid and Sarah, but very important things as well. So maybe you could both just go through some of the different varieties you can get, or different
Right.
types.
This is the easiest type, and this is a border. This one's Lambert's Golden. Borders can be grown outside. They're not fussy, they're not difficult. They've usually got frilly edges and no paste in the centre.
You can always do it.
Yeah.
Slice it.
Yeah. Well, I can go around and try and do that now.
No, we'll do it
actually.
afterwards, and then you can edit it in.
All right. Okay.
So
Alright.
No hope for him,
you can do the next one.
I don't know. You put up with it, John. I really don't. Okay. Sorry. Next one.
Right, so
Take the dogs to the
then we've got alpines. They're the next easiest ones to grow. And you see there's 2 different types of alpines. We've got pale centred and yellow centred. Gold centred, sorry. The white centred tend to be sort of on the pinkier side, pinky purples, and the gold centres tend to be sort of shades of orange, but they're very easy outside as well. And I've got Dragon Sword here and Elsie May here.
Elsie May. One of my favourites. That one.
Elsie may not.
you.
Ingrid,
Right,
over to you.
next we've got shows.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm
Okay,
not.
that's
Bless
the
you, my
shows.
child.
Okay.
These 2 are shows. You can see that they have got a very, very white centre, and if you touch the centre, you can see that the farina comes off on your fingers. So they're not the best for outside because the weather can spoil the flowers.
Right. Okay.
But all of them have just a complete colour with a very, very white centre. And this one is Cortina, and this one is Pot of Gold.
Brilliant.
Then we get on to the more exciting.
Sorry, Sarah. Onto you,
sorry.
Sarah. Onto you, Sarah.
Then we get on to the more exciting ones. So we have, first of all, we have stripes, and they are literally striping. But you can see that there's an awful lot of variation in a single plant and single flowers.
What's his name?
That's name is Forest Almost There.
Forest almost there. Brilliant.
Then we have, there are green and grey edges, and this particular one is called New Bottle. And you can see it's got a very green edge, red in the middle, and then the farina. But sometimes this one, for instance, has thrown a bit of a double flower, so don't be surprised, they do water themselves
That's
an
amazing.
awful
What's it
lot.
going to flower into a flower,
It's
is it?
turned it into a double flower.
Wow.
Some of our doubles this year have become singles, but next year they might be.
Do you know what it is? It's sort of magic.
Come on, last
There we
one.
go.
Okay. That's not the right one.
Where is it?
What are we after
Where
now?
have you put it? Where have you put her?
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry.
Oh, well, this one's a very special one.
This one's a
everybody.
very special
Yeah.
one. It's obviously a double. You can see it's double. It's got lots of flowers, and it is very special because it is called Sarah Millington, and the breeder named it after me.
Who is the breed?
The breed is Richard Austin.
And doubles aren't very good for outside because if it rains a lot, the flowers get full of water and then they tend to flop on the ground and the slugs come and eat them.
So that's all the different, I want to say
Types.
varieties, different types of auricula, and obviously then in those brackets is all the varieties and things like that. So I hope that's given you all a bit of an insight into the different types. So when you're looking for, Ingrid and Sarah, they've told you some are better outside or okay outside. I think that's really good advice. So what sort of compost are we putting in with these, would you say? We're talking about someone that's never grown an auricula before now.
What we use that works very well for us, and you can see, we've got quite healthy plants.
Yeah.
We use basically a mix of 2/3 peat and 1/3 potting bark. Potting bark is like orchid bark, that sort of size, and that aids for the drainage for the plants, but also the roots can use bark.
Yeah.
If you put things like grit in it, all you're doing is taking up space in the pot.
You're still getting the drainage, but you're reducing the amount of compost. Grain medium, sorry.
That's it. So that's again great advice. So there isn't one hard and fast way of what compost to use and different types. It's just another example here that Sarah and Ingrid have found works for them.
We always say use what you know as much as anything. You know how your compost behaves. You know what it looks like when it's wet, when it's dry, if it's shrinking away from the sides of the pot. I do find though that John Innes tends to go a little bit like concrete, so I would err away from John Innes types.
Okay, well that's what okay, that's great advice, Sarah. I think we're brilliant.
You're just full of John Innes.
John Innes, yeah, I know John very well. Very good friend of mine, actually.
Also, we use a slow release fertiliser, so we use Osmocote 12 month, so it just gives a slow release rather than hitting them all with a lot of food when you repot them. If you do a slow release fertiliser, then it'll just trickle out.
That's mixed in with your compost. So do you feed your plants here other than that?
We feed them if they're looking like they need food, we'll feed them, but because we repot every year,
and it's in the
compost.
What was it? The material? No.
Growing medium.
Growing medium.
Yeah. So because it's there, because we repot every year, the Osmocote we put in is enough to keep them going. Brilliant. So you don't want to put on too much growth when they're just repotted, and you don't want them to sort of have bursts of tomato. If you do tomato feed, that encourages flowering. So you really want to do it when they start growing in the spring, and not all the way through the year.
Brilliant. Okay, well I think that's it on that. So if anyone's got any questions, just drop them into the bottom of the video. But thank you both very much.
Pleasure.
Problems when growing your auricula. So, what do you find, John's the most common sort of, other than me?
Yeah, definitely Graham. Graham's the biggest pest I've had to put up with today. Of pests, really auriculas are pretty hardy. They don't get many pests and diseases. The main pest really is, two main pests that seem to be a problem. It's vine weevil, and the thing about with vine weevil now is you've got to learn what the life cycle of the vine weevil is. At the moment, it would be you'd have adults that have survived the winter, and they would start laying eggs in about another fortnight, 3 weeks time. The overwintering larvae that actually cause all the damage, they would, at the moment, they're probably as pupae, and they'll be emerging in a few weeks time. The only good thing about it is that they don't lay eggs for about 4 weeks after they've emerged. Every garden in this country has got vine weevils. They're a British native, and it's quite distinctive in the summer. If you look around for things like begonias and rhododendrons, they'll be notching on the leaves, and that's a definite sign that you've got vine weevils. Over the years, we've used some horrible chemicals, certainly before the Second World War, when they used lead arsenic to control vine weevil.
Did they really? Wow.
Yeah, good for getting rid of... You know why they used it, don't you? because all the vine weevils that they've gotten are females, so they were obviously practicing for getting rid of their wives, the growers. Anyway, over the years things have changed, and we've got less and less materials to be able to control vine weevil now. For us, it's all becoming very soft, biological. Up to a few years, up to 12 months ago, we used a material called metarrhiza, which is a fungus that's found in the soil, and that killed the vine weevils quite successfully, particularly if you used it in conjunction with a nematode drench. Now all we're left with is a nematode drench, which there are two main nematodes. The one you want to look out for is the one can be used at quite low temperatures, 5 degrees, because that's when the larvae are about. It's no good putting the nematodes on if you haven't got vine weevils present. It's just a waste of money, and it's expensive. The best time to put it on is from August onwards, and you can put a couple of applications on, and that usually does a pretty good job of controlling vine weevil.
Where would people get that from then, John?
You can buy it online.
Yeah.
That's the easiest. We buy it in bulk, obviously, for the amateurs, it's a small quantity. If you look online, you will see that there is a what's it called? Ultimate Bug Clear, and that's claimed to control vine weevil adults. There is a great big question mark over that, because vine weevils are notorious for, if they eat something they don't like, they spew it back up. So whether it works or not, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
And it is, at the moment, I've asked the question whether that particular active ingredient does control the adults, and I haven't had an answer back yet.
You have.
The other pest,
You have had an answer back, and it doesn't.
I know, but I'm not going to tell you
Mm.
that. The other thing,
But the first one you said works, and that's
the nematodes work. The timing of the nematodes is the important thing. Use it from really August, September onwards. The other thing that will help control is repotting every year. If you repot every year, you're less likely to have the grubs in there. The grubs are what cause the damage. They're little C-shaped grubs with a brown head, and if you squeeze them, it shoots out both ends. So it's quite a satisfying thing as a gardener to do it.
yeah. And being up high is a help as well, isn't it?
Not really. You tend to get more if you grow the auriculas on the ground, because they scurry about. There is so much research going on about vine weevils, because it is a major pest of all nursery stock. Not only in this country, also across the whole of the northern hemisphere, America, or the US, Canada, and the whole of Europe.
Okay, yeah.
In Europe, you can buy, or it is actually available here, and that's a trap. And basically, the trap is a block of wood with some grooves cut in it, and there's a nematode gel worked into it. I have not tried it. It has been tried experimentally with growers' organisation, and they weren't finding it that successful. The only one that they found that was really successful was one that was from Costa Rica, and it was for catching some weevil that is found over in Costa Rica. But I haven't actually seen that trap. I mean, you can do all sorts of things to help reduce the numbers. In the summer, you can, because the adults will always try and hide in the daytime. You can scrunch up some newspaper and they'll go in there, and then you can throw it away. What effect it has, I don't really know. We don't have time for that.
You treat as needed.
We treat as needed. But because we repot virtually everything every year, we don't tend to get a lot of vine weevil anyway. I think we've hardly seen any this year. I think we might have just had a few that where we just put the plants on the ground.
So another reason why repotting is a really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else, John? What other?
The other pest that you could get, other than is root aphids, and root aphids root aphids are becoming more and more important across the world. Not only here, because they're finding out because softer, less dangerous chemicals, less aggressive pesticides are being used. They're finding out that more and more root aphids were controlled by these pesticides. We actually had some grasses come last year from a wholesaler, and they'd actually got root aphids on them. So root aphids are quite common across the world. With auriculas, they were such a serious pest in about 1860, 1870 that it wiped out a lot of auriculas throughout the whole of the country.
Right.
The control for that is, again, repotting helps, because you can see if you've got the pest. It looks like cotton wool on the roots. You can then either wash it. Some people sort of say that the aphids that are found on there tend to float. If we find any, a dab of washing up liquid, shouldn't say that, a dab of washing up liquid in the water and just wash them with there seems to help quite well.
Wash them off, yeah.
It's just to break down that waxy coating that's on there.
So if someone finds them, it's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. You can control them. Washing. Some people sort of say, oh, you have to wash them underneath running water. We also reputedly, you can use horticultural soap in the summer, and that will control it quite well. In other parts of the world, you can actually use orange oil, which is a refined orange oil, which is made from the peel of orange, and it's cold pressed, and it produces a material. In this country, it's not available, even though you can buy orange oil in Sainsbury's. But that also appears to control it as well. But the only other pests that you're likely to see are not specific to auriculas, are whitefly and red spider mite. Red spider mite and whitefly, the secret to controlling them is monitoring. If you look around, you look under the leaves, you can see the whitefly. Red spider mite's not so easy to find, but you can look around and you can find it. The other thing that you want to do, although it doesn't help very much with red spider mite, are yellow traps. If you put yellow traps, you can get some of them. That's one from last year, and that acts as a monitor for the whitefly.
What damage will these do to whitefly?
They look.
It's like fly paper.
What will the flies do to the leaves? I mean, like. Why do you need to get rid of whitefly? What's the problem that they cause?
They'll eventually cause degeneration of the flower plant.
Okay. Norman had some of these in his greenhouse. It's a good idea.
All the time you're trying to do is you're trying to grow a healthy plant, and the healthier the plant is, the more resistant it is to pests and diseases. And we're finding that as life moves on, we're finding more and more that there is quite a close relationship between the plant and the soil. And eventually, I think, when science gets on, and we know what specific mycorrhiza, auriculas, or whatever plant likes, we'll be able to apply that, and that will then help grow the plant healthily.
So how worried do people need to be about pests? I mean, obviously you've got a lot of plants here.
So long as you monitor carefully, that they aren't a really problem. Red spider mite, if you're growing in a polythene tunnel, can be a problem. They seem to like the certain varieties, and you can use that knowledge that they like certain varieties to monitor and control it. But whatever you use for controlling in pests, the thing that you've got to do is not use the same material consecutively. So you want to change. If you use pyrethrum one spray, then you want to use something else next spray, something totally different. Not just the make, the active ingredients need to be different.
Yeah.
If you're really insane, you can look on the insecticide register and it will give you a load of codes. So if it's in code 1, you don't want to use another material that's in code 1. But there's about 28 different codes.
Yeah.
So there's only 28, 30 different pest insecticides that we can actually use.
I mean, I had red spider mite on my old mustard plant, and I took the leaf off. I just got rid of it because it had a web on it.
Yeah,
obviously that may not be the right thing to do, but what?
Yeah,
eradicate, get rid of them.
That's got rid of the problem. It's a bit difficult if you've suddenly gone away on holiday and come back and find that it's covered in webs, because they can just suddenly explode. If you get nice warm weather, they will start up.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, because they go to sleep during the winter, they go into diapause, which means that the females go to sleep.
Right.
So then you can't control them in the winter. So you just have to monitor for when they're starting to wake up.
Which is a lot easier for people like myself because we haven't got as many as what you've got. So I look at my plants a lot, so you can visually see. So.
Oh yeah, we go around quite regularly and just check plants. We have an idea that we know what plants are going to get whitefly first. So we will look at those first, and we will monitor those to see if we can control it. Whether or not they're auriculas, or whether it's something like a acanthus that tend to like it, or some of the primulas tend to
the spider might quite like farina on the plants, don't they?
Yeah, they seem to go. They seem to go for plants with farina. So some of the old cottage, old dusty miller, those with a lot of farina, they seem to prefer those. But why? I don't know.
No.
So I mean, once you're aware that they like a particular variety, then you can use that to monitor. But as I say again, the important thing is use different materials.
Yeah.
The amateur has got less chance than the professional, but even us, we've got fewer and fewer materials that we can use.
Yeah. That's great, John. I mean, to be honest, it sounds to me like everything's manageable, isn't it? And it's just keeping a visual check of things and that, knowing what you've got and going from there, really.
It's not difficult. It's changed. The thing is that pest management is changing now because we've lost losing all the nasty things that would affect the environment, and we're getting much more specific materials. This country is not very good. The pesticide regulation people, my opinion is that they're so far out of date. It's unbelievable. If you look in America, they've got far more biologicals than ever we've got. They've got 10 times the amount of biological controls that we can use. There is actually another biological control that controls vine weevil, but that's not available in this country.
So the biggest problem out of all of those is probably the vine weevil, isn't it?
Yep.
That's the main one to look out for.
And the simplest thing is repot.
Yeah. And for people that have never grown auricula before, is it okay for them every now and again to check the roots?
Yeah. If you knock a plant out, you're not going to get vine weevils this time of the year. You're only going to get the pupae, which look like a little mummy.
Yeah.
But if you in the autumn, if you start repotting and you see little C-shaped grubs, then you've got to be careful.
Okay.
Clean it up, get rid of that compost. Don't leave it lying around. Give it to the green bin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get it out of your garden. But as I say, every garden in this country has got vine weevils.
Yeah.
And the adults, although they're female, they lay fertile eggs, and every female can lay up to 500 eggs in a season.
So they can be a big problem then.
It can be. It is number one pest for hardy nursery stock at the moment.
Okay. Well, that's great. Is there anything else you want to sort of say about the pest side of it, John? 'Cause there's a lot of pests in there, but they're seem to be the main ones. And
the main four are whitefly, red spider mite, root aphids, and vine weevil. and if you control those, auricula growing is dead easy. It's not difficult at all. You can tweak it, you can tweak lots of things.
Yeah. So there's a lot to learn, but also as part of it, it's good fun is to learn as well along the way sometimes. John, that's amazing. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy.
I'll send you the bill.
Yeah, my sunglasses on there. Right, everyone, so we've come out into the garden. It's very beautiful here at Hillview Hardy Plants. And we're just going to have a little chat with Ingrid and Sarah. They've taken 5 minutes of their time of their busy day. So really, yeah, we've got some questions from some of the people on the Facebook page, which thank you to everyone that did put a question down. But first of all, I'd just like to be interested to know, Ingrid, start with you, what sort of got you into this racket business in the first place?
I've no idea really. No, an old gentleman used to come and visit me when John was at work and Sarah was at school to have a little chit chat, and he grew Lewisias and Auriculas, and he decided he was too old to keep both going, so he wanted to sell his Auricula collection. He asked me if I'd like to buy them, and they were 40p each, so I thought, we'll have a go, and we haven't looked back since.
And you've ended up with
rather a lot, yes.
Rather a lot that you've got now. What about you, Sarah? Did you just sort of carry on with your mum, really?
I fell into the family business and carried on, and then Richard Austin, who's bred a lot of the doubles, was in contact with me and saw that I had an interest in auriculas, and he was downsizing his collection and would I like some? So he started sending me boxes and boxes and boxes of auriculas, which is why I've now got the national collection of auriculas bred by Richard Austin.
And I'm quite new to it, so Richard Austin's one of the well-known.
He's put a lot of work into breeding new and exciting coloured doubles in the last 10-20 years.
Right, okay. That's great. So I think we'll just really move into some of the questions that we've been given from people now. And you can go as much into detail as you like, really. Just remember, some people really don't know. It's all new to them, so there's a mixture of people, as you know. So the first question we've got on here was by Aid West. So thank you, Aid, and hello to you, Aid.
Thank you.
It's always nice to see your posts on the page. And Aid just asked, what auricula are the hardest to keep? And secondly, what should a new person that's getting into growing auricula maybe avoid?
I would say the hardest, in as much as the slowest growing, are the green and grey edged. So I think get used to growing some other ones, because you will find that they're quite a lot slower than the borders and the alpines and the doubles to grow. And so I wouldn't start with those, because you can be put off if you lose a few.
Oh, and the other ones that are the hardest to grow, probably the ones you want to keep most, and then they just say, no thanks, I'm not going to live.
Okay, so you would avoid the sort of green edged ones. And what about, say, the easier ones, maybe ones that probably you seem to flourish the most?
Borders and alpines are very easy, but the Richard Austin doubles are exceptionally easy because they grow so well. They are really good, big, chunky plants. So if you want to start with a double, one of the forest varieties is a good go, because they are all so good at growing.
Okay, that's great. I hope that's answered your question, Aidan. That'd be great for people that are new to growing auricula. Okay, so we're just moving on now. Susie Catherine has put forward a very, very good question. I think Susie's quite local to me in Exeter, I think. So hi Susie, and thank you for your question. Basically, so it's a two-parter really. It's how and when to harvest seed. So how would you harvest the seed, and when would you harvest the seed?
The plants are just, some of the flowers are going over, and you'll be getting seeds. If you can harvest them just before they turn brown and sow them immediately, they will come up like mustard and cress. If you save them and keep them till next spring, then you will need to put them in the fridge to get them to germinate. So it's much, much quicker if you can sow fairly fresh seed. That's the case with most primulas anyway.
Does it matter what time of the year? So they would probably seed, say these, I don't know, would they seed in July? Is that a silly thing to ask?
No, sort of July, August time.
Although some of ours are starting to produce seeds, and we can show you one in a little while.
Okay.
So
And
people
you're looking
can
out for
know.
like a pod.
Yeah.
It's a pod, isn't it?
Yeah, so it'll turn into where the bottom of the flower is in the green bit, you will get a sort of swollen pod, what sort of size is it? Sort of peppercorn size, and then that's where the seeds are being produced.
Right. Okay. And then so they'll be inside the pod.
They'll be inside the pod.
And
So
you break the pod open.
yeah,
It'll open at the top itself,
Okay.
and then you've got to make sure the seeds don't fall out and you lose them.
Okay. So do that on a nice flat surface, bit of paper underneath maybe or something.
or a tray lined with newspaper.
Okay. Okay. Brilliant. And so that's how. Hope that's all right, Susie. And when? So you say it could be any time. So say, are you likely to get a seed pod in January, February?
There's every chance.
And is it okay
depends,
to
it
sow
depends
it?
when they decide to flower, because auriculas, although they normally flower in sort of spring, so sort of March, April, May time, quite a lot decide that they want to flower again, so they'll flower again in the autumn. So as soon as you've got the pods, if you can sow them as freshly as possible, that's your best bet. Otherwise, if you want to keep them over for a little while, you can then, as long as you put them in the fridge when they're brown, and then you can do them.
Brilliant. So I hope that's answered that, Susie. But Susie also went on to say she's also interested to know what seedlings become. So say for example you've got, I don't know, let's say an old mustard, and you get some seeds from that. Will it become will it become an old mustard, or are they the same as the plant they come from?
No.
Or
No.
what happens?
You never know what you're going to get, but the chances are you won't get the parent. So if you were to label it, say you had seeds from Elsie May, babies initially you would call X Elsie May, as in from Elsie May. If you've crossed specific plants, if you've done some pollinating yourself, then obviously you can know that it's Elsie May times fairy light, for example.
Right. Okay.
But you will get an awful lot of wishy-washy colours, and you are allowed to throw plants away, because if you keep them all, you'll just
Be inundated.
Well, you'll be inundated, and though the plants will be nice, if they're not the most exciting colours, you really need the space to put the really exciting ones.
Yeah.
But then you can always plant them in the garden. If there's ones you're not sure about,
Yeah.
you can always plant them out in the garden and enjoy them there.
And you know, some people might just enjoy them as a gift.
Exactly.
Whatever,
But it's
so.
always exciting growing things from seed, because you never quite know what you're going to get.
Yeah. And so then you've got, then you'd have a whole new variety, would you, presumably? Or-
Potentially, yeah.
And say, how would someone go about then trying to make that a variety if they wanted to? Say that was your thinking.
Well, you'd have to grow it on for a few years to make sure that it stayed true to what it is, because they do vary rather a lot from year to year. Sometimes doubles become singles, singles become doubles. We've got one that produces yellow flowers and red flowers on the same plant.
Really?
And some of the flowers are actually as if they've been cut in half and done with yellow and
Right.
red. So you need it to be stable, and you need it to be a good grower. And if you're going to use it for showing, then it's got to meet all the criteria that the shows require.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Well, I hope, Susie, that's answered your question. That's a very good question indeed, so thank you very much for that. And the final question was by Charles Farris. And he just asked, again, seedlings related, it's very popular with people. Top tips for caring for new seedlings. Any top tips?
Well, first of all,
From your
I would
experience.
prick them out as soon as you can, because though there's not very much showing on the top of a prickler, there's quite a lot of root underneath, and you really don't want to disturb the roots too much. I would prick them out and then keep them moist, but don't drown them. And certainly don't let them dry out, because once an auricula's dried out, it's very difficult to get it back into life.
Okay,
And don't overfeed them.
that's great. And it probably would just be seed compost with it. I mean, I've got my own little bits I do, but that's just me. But I mean, what's the standard rule of thumb?
Standard
Seed
is
compost.
seed compost, although it's not really allowed, peat seed compost is good because it's very fine. If you use something sort of John Innes, it will tend to go like concrete. So you do want something that's quite nice and free flowing.
Brilliant. Okay, well that's answered everyone's questions. I hope that answers yours, Charles. So thank you very much for that. And I think that's it really. I think a big question that I always asked a lot when I started growing back in September is watering. I know you water from above here, don't you? But say for example, someone in their greenhouse at home, what sort of water from below or water from
If you've got the time to water from below, definitely, but we'd never do anything else.
No.
And if you're growing in clay pots, what they used to do in the summer is they used to plunge the terracotta pots into sand or ash so that the plant can actually suck up the water itself. So you moisten the ash or the sand and then the plant takes it in.
So say you were watering from below, stood in some water, how long would you leave it probably in the water for? I know it depends how dry it is and things like that, but say you were just trying to do it on a regular basis, just whenever really is. How do you know when your pot needs to be watered? There's a lot of people that will probably be wondering that.
It's again down to compost. You tend to know what if you use a certain compost for everything, you tend to know how it behaves, you know how it looks, you know when it looks dry. If you're not sure, then knock the plant out of the pot to have a look.
Yeah.
To see how wet it is. If you're doing it from below, if you can stand them in a tray on some capillary matting and then sort of water the capillary matting sort of once a day, not massively, it only needs about at most sort of quarter of an inch, half an inch above the capillary matting, well probably quarter of an inch, centimetre or so, and then the plants can take up as much or as little as they need.
Okay.
But the more you grow the plants, the more you will know what they want, because they will tell you.
I mean with mine, because mine stand in the water, sometimes the compost is dry on the top, but it's got water in the bottom because I've watered it from the bottom. Is that alright or not?
Well, yeah,
really?
because the roots are going down,
Yeah,
not up.
so it doesn't. It's hard to gauge then if it needs it or not. This is where my issues come with
The
watering from the bottom.
capillary action will make the water rise up.
Right. Okay.
So it will, as I say, the roots aren't near the top.
No.
They're going all the way down. So as long as the roots are getting enough.
So that if the pot felt really dry, you'd know, or light, you'd know it really needed a good water.
Soaking.
Okay.
Sometimes you've got an auricula with very big leaves and the water doesn't quite get to it because it just drains off the leaves.
Yeah.
And then you can pick them up sometimes, they're as light as a feather, and then you've got to do something.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're going on holiday or something, you can plunge all the pots into water until air bubbles stop coming out, and then put it on some capillary matting, and then you can leave them for easily for a week.
Because if they get too dry, then they won't take it up by capillary action.
Right. So it's better not to let them get to the point where you're almost would have to walk from the top then, wouldn't you, just to get some down inside. That's brilliant. I think that's really good advice there, isn't it? So I think that's all the questions. That's certainly all my questions. I think everyone else's. Hopefully that's everyone's answered, and I really hope you've got something from that. Obviously Sarah's been on the page. Well, I think Ingrid, you're on the page now as well.
I'm looking at it to see what's going on.
So you've got some real experts there. And I just want to say thank you to you both and to John as well for
Thank you for coming and
today.
visiting. And any questions people have that they suddenly think of,
Yeah.
feel free to post them.
Yeah, I will be back again probably soon, so we'll maybe do some stuff again then. But next time I come, I'm going to be working more as opposed to bringing cameras and things and doing little videos. But I think the stuff we've got today from the three of you has been absolutely amazing. I think if I'd known that back in September,
You'd be a millionaire.
I'd be a millionaire. Well, I've got one of yours, Del Boy, so
Yeah.
you would be a millionaire next year. So, yeah, I mean, is there anything you guys want to say? Just
No question's a stupid question.
And all auriculas are primulas, but not all primulas are auriculas.
right.
That's deep, isn't it?
That is deep.
Yeah, but people sometimes think there are primulas and then auriculas, but they're all primulas.
Yeah. Yeah,
But just auriculas are completely different to a lot of other primulas.
absolutely, yeah. And it's about enjoying them. I
course
think
it is.
sometimes you can get too wrapped up in in stuff, and I think everyone's learning all the time, aren't they? I mean, as John was saying, with a lot of the pests and stuff, they're always finding new ways and different ways of doing things,
And it's your plant, you can do whatever you like with it.
yeah,
If you want to grow it in a 20-litre pot, you can grow it in a 20-litre pot.
yeah.
It may not do very well.
But the main thing is to enjoy them.
Exactly.
And, you know, we all know where we can get more from if we need them. So anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully that's answered everyone's questions. Hopefully you've got something from today. I think there's a bit of something for everyone in today. So like I say, just thank you to John, Ingrid and Sarah for their hospitality today. And I will be back again probably September time, I would have thought. So there we go. Cheers
you.
everyone.
Thank
See you
you.
later. Well, it's recording now. So this is the that's the seeds inside the pod there.
Yeah, and this is the pods.
Brilliant.
That's when it's starting to...
And that's the green pod
Yeah.
inside, yeah. Brilliant. So everyone, that's the seed pod inside, and that's when they're ready to go.